Melissa Bartlett, and you really Carrie Bigsby. It's your show, so tell us what you want to talk about. It's that The Round Table Podcast Show.
All right.
Hey, before we go forward, man. Before
Hey,
we
it's
even
already
go
live and
forward,
direct, bro.
hey, the intro is dope, man. Sound like the quiet storm about to break off up in here. Or something.
Hey,
Hey,
bling.
yeah,
Hey,
we grown up now, man. You know, you gotta have an intro to make things happen there. Yeah, that's what's up. What's up? Oh man, it's good to be back in the saddle once again. It's that Roundtable Podcast Show. And I get to introduce the sister who says she loves the skin that she's in. Yay.
Right.
It is Miss Pitbull herself, Miss Mahogany Steel. Oh, she got appellations. Oh, yeah. Oh, shh. Melissa Bartlett, what's going on, sis?
What's going on? Hello to my brothers. I'm so excited to be here. And it's a Wednesday, so you know that means it's a midweek. And I'm excited about the show tonight and the topic because I think there's a misconception of how every Black person feels in America right now. But there is also a unified consensus about how every Black person feels in America right now. So I'm excited about it, about the topic. And I'm glad to see my brothers here. Melanin, shining, clear, you know.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Needy. That is what's up.
Yes, sir.
And over here to the my upper corner is the man, the myth, the legend himself. It's Adrian A. Money Biddle, rocking Carolina Strong.
I see that. Whoop, whoop.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah. You know why we call him A Money. Mel, tell him why we call him A Money.
Call him A Money because he brings us the facts, the topics, and the guests. And when you do it, you can bank on it. It's going to be what it is.
Hey, I appreciate it, y'all. I appreciate the intro. That was strong right there. And I promise, if I strike oil in my backyard, I got y'all covered.
It's gonna be like Beverly Hillbillies, except it's gonna be the Gastonia.
Y'all gonna make me come out there.
And the man right below me, and Miss Pitbull, the one that stirs the drink, the orchestra himself, Mr. Culture, CD.
What's going on, family? Yes, indeed. Today is a amazing day. I am glad to be a part of it and get to be with my family right here as we get to dive into this topic that we hope will be enlightening and wake some folk up. I mean, I'm thinking along the line, boys. What was it? What was my boy Lawrence Fishburne when he ran outside? Everybody's in the dorms and stuff, and he says, "Wake up!
Yeah.
Wake up!"
Yeah,
that's deep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is.
So, who wants to be the first one to go ahead and drop the bomb on them right now? As far as tonight,
A Money. Let Money do. Let Money.
This is your baby right here, Miss Pitbull. I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce this one today.
So, family, we titled this show or this Wednesday Revolutionary Wednesday because of everything that's happening in our society right now. The climate is on that temperature right before boil. We've had several murders that's taken place with our youth. We've had a small time to cheer in victory, which is so sad that even in that, because so much has happened and there's been so much disregard that you couldn't even feel that it was a victory. And so we want to have our family talk to us about, what are you feeling right now? How are you feeling after the trial of former Officer Chauvin and the recent shootings? And not to drudge up the emotion because we are all needing therapy. This has been so much drama and trauma
Mhm.
that we have to just suck up and continue our day with, whether we know the victims or not. It still is a hurt piece for me personally. So we're asking that family, like, how are you feeling right now? What are your thoughts? What are some of the things that you're going to do personally as a change? Because as I stated before, keyboard courage is therapeutic, but
Say that again.
it's not making any changes.
Say that
Um,
thing. Say that thing.
that keyboard courage, thumbs, fingers,
Mhm.
it's therapeutic.
Mm.
I've even got caught up in a couple of exchanges on a few
Uh-huh.
platforms. But what are you really doing? That's not changing anything. So talk to us, family. Tell us what it is that about this that you feel that you can do to try to create change, to start change. And also, if anybody wants to actually be on, they actually want to appear in the dialogue box here with us. Let us know, and Carrie will shoot you a link, and you'll be up here right with us, giving your opinion. So,
Yes, indeed. I like that. Definitely like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Hagi, what's going on? Thank you for joining us on At the Round Table podcast show. We're getting ready to dig deep and get into it. Hey, money.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you first saw it, I'm gonna drop this out here so maybe people can start getting a little bit of loose up and get comfortable with it. But when you saw that they deliberated in such a short amount of time and was getting ready to come back in order to give the verdict, what was your first thought?
I was nervous. I was
Mhm.
nervous. We done seen this story too many times before. So
Right.
when they deliberated and came back with a verdict so quickly, I
Mhm.
was praying that it would be on the right side of what was supposed to happen. It should have been happening in previous cases prior to
right.
this.
Right.
So I prayed on it, and I'm sure it was a lot of other people out there doing the same thing, praying that justice will finally prevail. But when the verdict was read, it was I was happy, but still somewhat bittersweet. And when I say bittersweet, and what I'm meaning by that is that it shouldn't have taken this long. I mean,
Mm.
you can think of the countless other situations where certain situations like these have taken place prior,
Mm.
and it wasn't any justice rendered.
Mm.
I think the only way that a lot of this is going to change, and it'll be a start for a change if it's some form of legislation that's actually passed to make sure there is not any type of protection for police officers when they're in the wrong, and it's blatantly you can tell that they're in the wrong.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Right. And Hagi said she was nervous. She was shaking.
Mhm.
I was in Pittsburgh at that time, and I was at my sister's house, and we were sitting there, and I literally was just like scared to have emotion
Mm,
Mm.
because
Wow.
I was scared to be disappointed,
Mhm.
and I was scared to be hopeful,
yeah.
anticipating that we'll see some resemblance of what justice is for everybody who is white in America.
Mm.
Um, it was just a mix of emotions for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
Mahogany
true.
said, now I'm just praying that the judge gives him the maximum sentence. And that's very true. If a lot of people don't know, he was charged with 3 counts. So each one of those counts have a maximum.
Of
So
25 years.
yeah, so now is, and it's ironic because somebody was talking about this some time ago, I think on Twitter, and we were chatting about it, and I told him, this case will set the precedence moving forward. Now what's going to happen is whatever the judge hands down to them, or to him rather, then you've got to think about the other cases that are about to come up around June time for the other officers.
Hmm.
So whatever happens here, hopefully will transcribe over to them as well, because they were co-conspirators if you really look at it. I mean, let's be real. I mean, you know, they were standing there, they saw what was going on. Me personally, none of them had the boldness to step forward and tell Chauvin to get off of him. They followed suit.
Exactly. And the one unique thing about this particular trial, which I found very extraordinary, is that this time that code of blue was actually broken. You had police officers that served with their colleague and said enough was enough, and actually came forward and said that he was wrong in what he did. And that was telling, because that's the first time to my recollection, that I ever seen any police officers come up to disagree or to point the finger at the officer that's on trial to say that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also have to understand the pressure that the judge is under, because this, again, when we say it's systematic, it definitely is. It's systemic. Those judges, they have colleagues. They have a way of life. They have favors. They have tea on each other. There's a lot that's going to go into him with the amount of time that he gives this officer, because it is going to be history making. It is going to be a change in legislation, and it will not per se follow state to state, because we still have to keep that in mind as well. This is for Minneapolis.
True.
So what happens in Georgia, what happens in Alabama, what just happened here in North Carolina, what happens in Wisconsin or Milwaukee, what happens, you understand what I'm saying? Like, they can use that for leverage, but it doesn't make it to be so across the board.
True. No different than the voting.
No different than the voting.
Yeah.
And this is why you start to see how this is all been set up in the way that it's been set up.
Yes, indeed. So check this out. So Darryl Carr said there was too much convincing evidence against him. He wasn't getting off. And then Mahogany notes this as a response as well. She said, in many cases, it seems like there is so much convincing evidence, but somehow they still get off, which is very true. And I want to kind of go back. I want to see if y'all remember this. Rodney King.
You took it. You took it. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Rodney King had convincing evidence then, back when VHS was the thing to do. And it was like he had the video and everything, and still look what ended up happening to him.
And mind you, to interject, bro, just real quick, mind you, the live footage came from a news chopper. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was there wasn't someone that was a citizen. There wasn't someone that was his friend. There wasn't body cams. This came from a news chopper who was covering the riots, covering the highway, the traffic, the cars being, vacated and vacant. It was a news chopper live that filmed it, showed it, real time. No
real
other
time.
motivation, no other kinds of, because you get the whole with now of the cell phone videos. What happened before then? This was straight then, right then. They showed him pulling him out the car. They showed 5 of them beating him, 5 or 6 of the officers.
Down, yes.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. And I think the irony is too, with this particular case, and granted, there's been other cases, in which there's been police that have jumped on individuals or shot them and planted a gun, and somebody back in the woods is filming it and things of that nature. But I think the irony with this is almost as though it was the perfect storm, because not only did you have this videotape, and you had people on the street right there watching this, and then you had these police right there watching it. Then you had the young lady who was filming it right there on her phone. And you had other people that were vocal. This thing went worldwide.
It did.
And it's like, when you got people that are in England, in Australia, in Zimbabwe, and they were all talking about this one particular case, Granted, all these other things have happened to us or African Americans. They've been shot, they've been beaten, all this stuff by those that are in the blue. This one particular case made it worldwide, and it was the
I,
perfect storm.
a lot of them, it went worldwide. I feel that other elements of the storm is being in a pandemic, because at the time that happened, we were truly on lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also feel that the fact that, and I get emotional just thinking about it. I usually don't watch any videos, but I watched that one,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone saw a human.
You
They
would
didn't see
hope.
a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't see and right, bro. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
why this one particular video seemed to strike the hearts of the world.
He called
Everyone
for his
saw
brother.
everyone saw a
Mm.
human. Everyone just saw a man at this point being murdered in front of them. They saw the life uh, come out of him. They saw his soul leave. They heard him calling for his mother who had passed so
Mm-hmm.
many years prior. Um, and it struck a chord. It struck a sense, a tug on their hearts. And even at that, the media still was biased in their support of it, because they weren't showing you the Black Lives Matter marches in Oregon, in Utah, in Australia. Some of the places that may not, I don't want to say are prejudiced, but they are very, there's a very small percentage of African Americans in their actual communities.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't
Mhm.
show you those marches. They didn't show you that, you know, there was other places Midwest that have Black Lives Matters. Not all lives matters, not blue lives matters. They had Black Lives Matter signs
Mm-hmm.
and yards and on their cars and buying T-shirts and standing up because they're saying this has to stop. Um, you murder someone in front of the world.
Mm-hmm.
No one cares about what he used to do. Um, it was a nonviolent act
Mm-hmm.
because it was thought that he was trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill. He didn't
Yes.
go in the store and threaten the owner of the store. He wasn't trying to steal anything. It was thought that the counterfeit bill was, I mean, the $20 bill was counterfeit.
Yep.
That's why the police was called. That's it.
And you know the most brazen thing that it still has me astounded the most is that, and before I even get into that, I want to make sure that everyone out there knows that we're not directing it at every police officer. We're just reflecting on the bad ones, the bad apples that's intertwined with them.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that really tells me how entrenched that culture is of the bad apples is that they're wearing body cams
Mm-hmm.
during this process. It's being recorded. So you would think, and I emphasize this again, you would think that would be a deterrent to make sure that you're doing everything that you properly and by the law. But we see time and time again that it doesn't even matter. That's how entrenched it is. You even hear them
Yes.
also some of the time congratulating the others when their other colleagues that's breaking the law on some of these
Absolutely.
videos.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
the problem is that the officers forget that you are an officer to uphold the law. That means you are to abide by them. And a lot of them feel that they are to enforce the law. And that is totally wrong and BS. Um, it's just a sad thing. And, I think a lot of times we as, non-white Americans um get caught up in the noise. But what are you really doing at this point? We could talk about the trial, we can talk about how messed up it is, we can talk about, you know, the verdict, we could talk
Mm-hmm.
about how we felt. What are you doing now? Are you
Yeah.
voting? Are you getting familiar with the people who are holding your offices in your law enforcement? Are you getting who is going to be general attorney and your DAs and your head sheriffs and your commander, your police captains and your commanders, are you following up on those positions to see who's in them? We have a job to do. We have a responsibility. And we talked about obligations before we came into on the show and went live. And I told my brothers that, obligations aren't something, they're optional, you know.
Hmm.
But this is something that I feel that we as people, anybody who is not white, needs to feel that they have an obligation to do their part as a citizen and as a direct inheritor of this country. Because I know it's been made to feel like we don't belong here, but we do. And we are entitled to everything that America has to offer us, to uphold our obligation. We are to vote. We are to be educated. And education doesn't always have to come from four walls of an institution, but you got to have more out here than a party. You got to have more out here than to be hood rich. You got to have more out here than to sit up here and just be in neighborhoods and just be like, well, that's what we supposed to have because it's raggedy. Black people don't live in raggedy. We don't live in filth. We're not that type of person. There's a lot that you're gonna have to do. That means you're gonna have to tell Uncle Bubba and cousin JoJo and even your sons and daughters, you
Hmm.
need to get your act together.
Mm.
We got to draw the line. Because if you think this is gonna stop, it's not. It's not.
Hmm. Ooh. Told you she was gonna drop it, A Money.
Oh yeah, that was gonna happen. That's a given right there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And
So
Mahogany made a good point. She said,
mhm.
seeing someone kneeling on someone's neck with his hands in his pocket took it to another level for everyone.
With a smug look on
With
her
a
face.
smirk. Yes, A Money.
Yeah, yeah. It. I think when the world saw that, it was trying to make sure I say it correctly because I'm not trying to get y'all in trouble. Um, it showed that basically how Brother Floyd was considered less of a man at that time.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, because
Brother
and I thought,
Floyd, we consider less than. Like all of us are. That's the problem. It
yeah,
just
but
it just showed how they really feel.
it was. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see that, and the people that were pleading on the side. And it's unfortunate because they were pleading on the side for him to get up, and they were afraid to come forward. Even one of the it was a young lady who was actually, she was a first responder, and
The
she was even
EMT?
saying that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, her
And
testimony was very compelling.
oh my goodness. But it just, the way it happened, it just seemed as though he was not considered a human at all at that time. And oh man, it was I even to this day I still can't wrap my head around it and how that happened to him. And then it just makes you go back through the annals of time and see all of the other individuals that lost their lives.
Mhm.
And I want to say this real quick as a disclaimer. Um, I want everybody to understand that a life is a life, and it doesn't matter if you used to be a crackhead. It doesn't matter if you used to sell drugs. It doesn't matter if you were promiscuous. It doesn't matter if you live with your boyfriend. It doesn't matter at all. All these things. And the irony is that many times when these situations happen, and I told this to somebody, that when this situation happens like this, the media has a tendency to go and pull dirt.
Only on one party though.
They pull this dirt, and they're talking about this, and they're talking about this and that. It does not matter if a person, a young man, ran from the police and was trying to get back in his car. It does not matter if he had warrants. It does not matter if he missed court dates. It does not matter that he did not comply. That does not give somebody the right to pull a gun and shoot him dead.
There are no levels in apprehending black and brown women and men when it comes down to certain officers when they are engaging. It's straight murder. There's no compassion, there's no thought process, there's nothing. And that is what the problem is. And people want to try to make it murky and they want to try to make the line blurred. That is what the issue is for me personally. I have a problem when there's no training or you disregard the training that you received
Mm,
because you see the color of their skin and you immediately say, I don't have to exercise compassion. I can kill them if I want to. That is my problem.
mm. Hey,
Mhm.
money.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with what both you and Melissa had just stated. The biggest thing, and I mean, it's the most simplest thing. Everybody wants to be treated fairly and equal. Treat me,
Mhm.
I treat you how I want to be treated, and and that you can't get any simpler than that. I'm fatigued. I am really fatigued, and it just seems like it's on an uptick right now. So I'm
Mhm.
curious with the viewers right now, how are they feeling through all of this?
Mhm.
Good point. Very good
Yeah.
point.
How are you feeling? And what are you doing to deal with it?
Mm,
Because you still have to process it.
good point. Family, we are live on at the Roundtable Podcast Show. We are talking about the recent verdict with the former officer Chauvin and George Floyd, and we're also talking about all the other instances that has occurred against someone of color. Um, and it's interesting because there was just a post today about Ahmaud Arbery and the three gentlemen, I say that loosely, that took his life.
That we're not law enforcement.
Was not law enforcement. He was jogging. In which how they're going to, how they're going to be tried.
Mm.
Um, we want to know what y'all thoughts are. How do you feel? Is this like the norm when it shouldn't be the norm? And you even said it too, Melissa. And I was talking to Milton Po'boy just the other day after the verdict, and he said the work has not stopped. So, like you said, what are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going to happen now that this has happened? What are you going to do to help go forward?
It gotta be all gas, no brakes, y'all. It gotta be all gas, no brakes. We can't let up. And let's talk about while we wait for some of our family to chime in. Look, it took over a year of constant pressure for this man
Mhm.
to even be brought to trial. It took over a year of multiple marches, multiple sit-ins, multiple contacts to the offices of the police department, to
Mhm.
the mayor's office, to the governor, to the states. It took multiple efforts and energy, and it took over a year to even get him to face trial. So if we had to do this, and we had to do this for one, it's time for us to get our boots on. I don't want to hear, I'm okay for a good party. Y'all know I like a good party. I like a good cocktail. I like to laugh and joke. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But we got to be about something of some substance. We got to be about making sure that we're doing what we need to do as a people for
Right.
our people. And our people is people sometimes that don't look like us. You know, there's a video of the grandmother that has dementia and how the cops treated her. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Mm.
While we do have the majority of the media showing us as black people as always in some type of a confrontational or some type of a um not favorable opportunity or situation, this is out there happening to other people who are not black. This is out here happening to things that now they may not lose their lives, and this is where we are saying there's a difference, but they're being mistreated as well. And so if we don't fight for officer reforming, the police departments having better training, having some type of an accountability system in place, um, having repercussions of them being fired. I told you guys, and I won't share their name, but I'm very close with two sheriffs in this state of North Carolina. They did not work for Mecklenburg County. I will share that. But
Mhm.
they reported something that happened. It didn't make the news, but there was some clips and some videos on social media platforms of the mishandling of a young man. He was Hispanic. And they then reported the officers. By the time they returned back to the precinct, they were called into their captain's office
Mhm.
and they were put on administrative leave with pay.
Mhm.
They were on administrative leave with pay for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, they were fired.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And they shared with me the story because of this.
Mhm.
And if you have this type of punishment for trying to do the right thing, to come against, as you said, that bad apple,
Mhm.
what do you think the rest of the people there? Because there's not a lot of cops that's like, oh, I'm okay with that. Kudos, I'm gonna clap. Yeah, we condone that. They don't. But this is what's happening in real life. People are losing their career jobs. These people are losing their profession. They have families. They have responsibilities. They've, committed. My friend, who is one of the sheriffs that got fired, she's been a
Mhm.
part of the sheriff department for 12 years. 12, not two, not one, 12.
Mhm.
What do you want? How do you feel? How does that happen?
Mm.
That's deep right there.
Yeah, that is.
Shouts out to Earl Tripp and Charlie Twos for joining us on at the round table. They've been dropping
Uh,
some
well,
comments and such. Appreciate that. Yeah,
mhm.
that's that blue wall, boy. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's why I was so again. That's why I was so shocked with, well, shocked and impressed that their colleagues stepped up and pretty much testified against the act that took place that put them in that situation. It's a prominent radio talk show host that made mention that instead of instead of suing the city or the township that the incident took place, the officer that was the participant in doing the injustice, whenever going after them, they should have their pension sued after instead of suing the city.
Whoa.
And I'm a proponent. I'm a
I think
strong
that's a great
proponent of that.
idea, and I still feel that there needs to be some things in there. I
Hmm.
think still there
Oh
needs to be some boundaries, but some type of
yeah, of
maybe some
course.
amendment. But I
Hmm.
am I am so there because there has to be a punishment outside of just going to jail. Because
Exactly.
let's be fair, everything doesn't warrant even a police officer either making a mistake or
Mhm.
making a bad judgment warrant them to go to jail. Just like everything doesn't warrant us to go to jail or warrant
Exactly.
us to be murdered. But I do feel that there should be some type of a repercussion that will actually feel, hey, I don't want to mess up my pension or I don't want to do this. There should has to be something, but it has been so long
Mhm.
that the police force has been able to do exactly what they want to do. Um, and it's time to start looking at some of these leaders, some of these captains, some of these, the head honchos. You know what I'm saying? If you're allowing this in your house, you allowing this to go on, and this is your followers. Just speaking to
Mhm.
the head. If you don't want to start feeling the heat on that too, you don't get to dismiss yourself and detach. No, you need to be able to be held accountable as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what Mr. Carr just got through testing, this is so true. That's why I'm hoping that what we saw in this most recent trial, is the beginning of that blue wall starting to come down. It's all right to support your fellow colleagues, but in this particular case, when you know that it's outright wrong, step
Mhm.
up and do what's right, because it's putting everybody in a a lose-lose situation. That's why you're seeing so much distrust right now with law enforcement.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And what I don't want to see is a lot of people who are frustrated. Where this pandemic has escalated people's mental illness,
Hmm.
um, their lack of treatment, um, their emotional state is heightened, and they want to be a part of something good. So being in a rally, being in a march, being in a protest, it's juicing them up, it's jacking them up,
Hmm.
and then they go out here and decide, since they're not going to do right, I'm going to make it right.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Because I have friends and family who are police officers, and I don't want to see them become a victim either,
Yeah.
because of the turmoil and the hurt and the trauma,
Hmm.
that we've had to face, that we have to watch, that we've had to listen to, that we had to see. It feels like we have been spat in our faces when you
Yeah.
have someone murdered, jogging, murdered in front of their families, murdered in their sleep, murdered because of traffic light, turning signals out, murdered because you was walking from a store,
Yeah.
murdered because you were riding a bike, murdered because you was taking out your trash. Like, it's just too much. You know what I'm saying? It's heavy. It's heavy on us, and as a queen of the Black community, we have always bared the weight of everyone, especially our Black kings. It is
Hmm.
heavy for us. It hurts us because we birthed this nation that they are killing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Very
Hmm.
true. Anthony just said the mentality of the bad cops have been passed down for generations of cops. You need to break the chain. And and here's the irony. I remember when years ago, shouts out to Lucky and the Lucky uh Shop Barbershop and Lucky and another individual, Sheriff McFadden. Adrian and I have had the pleasure of talking with as well. I remember when we were in Lucky's spot and Morgan Fogarty News had many of us, and they were talking to us about the recent, well, it wasn't recent, but during then it was recent, the situation that happened with the young man who had a car accident.
From home from college, right?
Home from college, from FAMU.
Yep.
Uh, he had a car accident. He went and knocked on the door, needing help and such, a bit disoriented, and the police officers, arrived,
His
and
hands
shot and
was up,
killed him.
if I wasn't mistaken, right?
Indeed.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because at that time, one of the things that we talked about was the potential in Charlotte, North Carolina for a powder keg to erupt, for marches to happen and things of that nature, and everybody thought that Charlotte was far removed and couldn't even do that. Needless to say, it did happen.
It did.
And it's one of those things, and I thought about that when I heard Mayor Vi Lyles. She commented after the recent verdict on Chauvin, and she made a statement saying that could have been here. And I thought about it and I said, wait a minute, it was here. It just didn't get a lot of notice, the way this did. But it's one of those things in which, I talked to a police officer about it, and, he even mentioned it as well. He didn't want to get rolled up into that ball of mess, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's bad cops, and there's ones that rode the ride and they abuse their power. It's a power trip to them. But he was young and he didn't want to get rolled up into that. Now you fast forward to now when they're talking about dismantle the police, and everybody's saying, oh, well, if you dismantle the police, what are you going to do? You're not going to have anybody to help enforce the law and such. And I think that's a misnomer. I think people don't understand. It's not the fact that people don't want to do away with police totally. What they're saying is they need better training to understand, like you said, mental instability on certain individuals. They need to go back and understand as far as how to de-escalate situations. Maybe even understand, if you've been in it for over 20 some years, understanding your taser from your gun. I mean, there's so many things. I think they've gotten so complacent and such. And there are some great police officers that are out there. I've met many of them, and we've done civic work with each other and stuff. And there's so many of them out there. But what happens is when you have the bad apples, as Adrian would say, it casts a wide net over all of them. And then what ends up happening is some of them end up getting
their heads chopped off.
Get it treated wrong by the people in the neighborhood who they're there to sworn to protect and serve. And not too long ago, there was a police officer right after that situation. There was a police officer that was shot and killed, because he got lumped into that. It was somebody angry that did that.
Right. And those are the officers that are getting, murdered. And I feel like, police officers back in the day, as Daryl Carr said, that this is something that's not new. This is something that's been passed down all the time. But the police officers of the neighborhoods got to know the neighborhoods. The police officer, but this is all part of the plan. This is why they started dismantling Black neighborhoods, because back in the day, it might not have been what you saw on the white side because they didn't invest as much money, but Black people still had a sense of community. They had a sense of neighborhood, and the officers that patrolled that neighborhood got to know those people in that neighborhood. So when Miss Johnson's son was starting to act a little erratic back then, they might have been like, well, he off. He ain't wrapped too tight. But that officer knew Mrs. Johnson's son, and so they knew how to go and approach that because they knew the address. They knew that was Mrs. Johnson's son. You got people now who pretty much don't know anything about the streets, and they riding around in them and riding around them. They're sitting up here. They started doing these little mini police stations throughout, so they didn't have to report back to the huge precinct, and they're riding those little. They're deployed from those little community centers, and then that's it. That's all that they do. And they only go by all the negative stuff that somebody says that this is what this is. And I'm not going to sit here and act like in communities you don't have trouble spots, because you got them in everyone, even the ones over there in South Charlotte, even the ones over there up in North. You got trouble spots in every neighborhood, because that's just the nature of people if you live in a collective environment. However, that's all they want to show you when the Black neighborhood. So now you got these cops who are scared, who are young, who haven't been trained, who haven't been given the encouragement and the investment of courage to say, when you go out here, if you do this, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you need to interact. They don't have the programs anymore where the cops used to come to the picnics and the cops used to do the pickup basketball games, things like that. They don't have that anymore. None of that's happening. It's far and in between. You have the barbershops that do the cops and barbers. That was a nice program, but it's not something that, hey, gets a lot of traction. Guess what? It's not promoted by our local media. You get 15 seconds at the end of the 11 o'clock news to say that they reported it, but that's it. They're not really trying to report that because it goes against what they're trying to do in the plan of what they're trying to do. We got to get out here and do what we have to do. Just before I went home, there was a cop in the gas station when I stopped to get gas, and they were just buying waters. Okay? One was Black, one was white. They were in front of me. I paid for their waters. You want to know why? Because I want them to look at me, and whatever has been told that I represent has been a lie. I'm intelligent. I'm nice. I'm not a thug. And I don't hate you. I bought their waters. They were like, thanks. No problem. Have a nice day, officer. And I'm going to do what I got to do. And honestly, the people that was in the store was like, whoa. But hopefully that action affects change.
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. So Daryl Carr, he made a comment regarding, he said, has anyone ever thought that Black people, we play a role in all this? Something so simple as just complying. We always want to fight and argue. I agree and then I disagree. And I say that because of this. There are some instances in which there are some, a lot of the young African Americans, they do feel that way. And they feel, what's the word? They have a chip on their shoulder. There are some. And then there are some that, feel like, yeah, to comply. But here's the caveat. Here's the $64,000 question. And I want to ask this to Daryl and everybody else as well. Because what has happened is many times when we're talking to brothers and sisters and such, when they're listening to these things and they see these things that happen in media, by means of what's happening to young brothers and sisters, the first thing they say is they got to have that talk. Okay. And used to be back in the day, the talk was birds and bees. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the talk is how to handle yourselves around police. You know what I'm saying? So gone away is the fact that you can bring some babies up in this house. I need to have a talk with you to understand this is how you need to act when you come in contact with a police officer. Put your hands up on the dash. Do this. Say this. Make sure you have everything out and ready. All these things. So, it's a catch-22, Daryl, regarding that, because I do agree some of that, because some of them do have a tendency in which they want to buck the system and such. But, you got to think back way back in the 80s and the 90s with NWA and the things that they were saying. But at the same time, though, we shouldn't have to live in fear. And it's not always somebody who has to, quote unquote, comply. I think about just the recent video with the young soldier
in Virginia,
and how he was reacting and how he was trying to talk to the police and what he was saying. He was complying.
Sure
He still
was.
got pepper sprayed.
They
Still
pepper
got drug
sprayed
out of the
him and drug out his vehicle, and he had on his uniform, and you got all these people, taking a knee, and that's disrespectful. It was a gentleman, an officer in his uniform, and y'all still treated him like that. And two things, NWA was talking about F the police because they were young and they had no clue that it was happening all over America. They were just talking about how the LA cops was treating them. And when it comes down to complying, you know what I'm saying? You have those that comply in the talk. I have to talk with my girls because this does not now escape whether you are a male or female. And it hurts me, but I'm truthful. I say you do these things to enhance your chance to come home to me.
That's it.
But
And
there is
Daryl,
no guarantee that it's going to do it, depending on the
right.
cop that pull you over.
And Daryl just said no, he wasn't. And Daryl, if you don't mind, just chime in and just kind of share more about that as far as what you mean as far as no, he wasn't. Because here's the thing: there's been so many instances in which people have complied and it still didn't do good, and then there's instances in which people have not complied and it did not do any good. And I think what people are trying to say right now is, in the grand scheme of things, which way do we go?
Yes, because I done seen many times. I totally agree. I say this much. I agree with Mr. Carr as far as complying. However, here's a little caveat. I done seen on many other occasions, other ethnicities not comply. Literally, I done seen a couple of them go after a police officer with knives and other weapons.
Take their weapon, take their baton, and their car.
But they were apprehended without any fatalities,
without being murdered.
So whether or not we comply, which I don't see plenty of us have, and something deviate or some mishap that has happened, or whether we don't, I mean, it is what Carrie and Melissa and me trying to put forward. We don't know which one to do at this point, because even when we try to do right, there's still something happening.
And that's the point of the protest. You cannot murder us. Let's start calling it what it is. You are murdering us. If you pull me over and you already scared, you already janky, and I've got my hands on the wheel, everything is right as supposed to be, and you decide to ask me a question, and let's talk about the conflicting orders that are barked. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Give me your license. Get out the car. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. I'm already scared. I suffer from PTSD from these daggone videos that if a cop gets behind me, I immediately get nervous. And I'm not afraid to say it. And I don't like feeling that way. I don't like driving in the day and in the night and feeling like, oh my God, there's a cop, because I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know if they're having a bad day. I
Hmm.
don't know what's going on in their mind. I have a black car with manufactured tint windows, and I have dreads. A lot of times they can't tell if I'm a man or a woman just by the profile of the car and the silhouette is in the car. I've had cops follow me literally for a block or two. And probably when they run in place to see where it comes from, they see that I'm a female, they keep it going. I don't like living like that. So you're not
Yeah,
going to tell me that, oh, okay, well, if we just do this, if we just do that, then this won't happen. Because it happens because of the intent and the evil mindset of that particular officer. And again, it's not everyone, it's not all of them,
not
but there
everyone.
are some, depending on the day, depending on the night, depending on what happened earlier in that day. If they mess with another black person and they pissed them off, you might want to take that out on me. And then I'm dead, because there is no in between. There is no, you know, I'm gonna rough them up, which still isn't okay. But I'm just saying, it's straight murder.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I remember when I was talking to, during that time I was talking to a police officer, and they were talking about, this is their, they gave great insight, and they said like their day, when they're preparing. So I'm gonna share this with y'all, and I'm not saying this is with every police officer as far as the evil intent that Melissa was mentioning and stuff. Every police officer does not have that intent, but there are
No.
some that do.
Yes.
But I want to paint a picture for y'all real quick. You're a police officer and you're getting ready to go on second shift, okay? You have to check in by at least 3 or 4 o'clock, okay? So what you're doing is you're getting all your stuff together, all right? And while you click the news on, okay? So as you click news on and stuff, and you're getting your gear together, you got your uniform pressed, you got it, getting it on, you're putting on your belt, you putting on your holster and everything. As you're listening to what's going on, you're hearing about these situations that are happening, maybe in North Charlotte, maybe over in Earl Village, maybe over here and such. Your mind is already getting preset on how you're going to handle that evening.
Yep.
And the police officer told me that. And he said, and in my mind, he said, all I want to do is come home. I said, brother, I understand that, but let me challenge you with this, because we want to come home too.
That's right.
So somewhere along the line, we have to come to the middle. It can't always be in which, it's them against us and us against them, because the irony is that while, we say these things about the police, we have to understand if somebody breaks into our house, who we going to call?
The police
So
or the
somewhere along the
paramedic.
line, yeah, okay, we might catch them. But
Sure.
it has to come to that happy middle, though, in which we've got to work together. And that's the thing that a lot of people are wanting to do.
Yes.
But unfortunately, these situations are taking over the ability to do that. In other words, we want to work with the police officers. We want to have that. I remember when there was this real big police officer that used to be in our neighborhood all the time. He used to come to the school. He'd be in our neighborhood and such. And it was great. Officer Paul. And he would be at Garringer. And it was great for him to be a part, because he knew what was going on. He knew the guys that were on the track team, and he knew this and he knew that and everything. And like you said, it's that disconnect. They don't act like that anymore. So if you can't communicate with Big Mama and let Big Mama know that her grandson is locked up downtown right now, because you got that relationship with her, somewhere along the line, we're not coming together. And it's always going to be that us versus them type thing. And we've seen it too many times.
You talk about reforming the police department, but we also need to reform our homes. We need to reform our neighborhoods. We need to reform what it means to have a sense of community. We have to
Mhm.
do a reform all the way around. And while the police officers are paid to do right and do right by the citizens of the township or the city or the neighborhood that they're protecting, supposedly protecting, we as citizens have a right that we have to do what we need to do to reform. So you cannot keep having to turn a deaf ear and eye to things that are wrong. And I've said this before on previous shows. Pick up. If you see trash, pick it up. Have a sense of pride in where you live and where you lay your head. Because a lot of times, too, what you do and how you look and how you act and what you have in your house and around your house also let people be able to be prejudiced.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
we are all prejudiced. No one can say, "Oh, I'm not prejudiced." Yes, you are. Because if you're black and you decide, "I'm not going to go to the Walmart over there in Wilkerson. I'm going to go to the one over here, and I'm going to go to the one all the way down Gastonia." You're prejudiced. Want to know why? Because you're already saying in your mind, "I don't want to go over there because that's where the roughnecks are, or that's where there's some drama. I ain't going over there." You prejudged. You are prejudiced. That's all prejudice means. It does not mean anything about color or sex.
Mhm.
It means that you have prejudged someone. And so we have to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward. You down there
Mhm.
in line for J's, but you need to be making sure that your house is together. Cut the grass, pick up the trash, quit talking all loud and having music all loud when you walking in the store. You know what I mean? Like there's just certain things that have just went out the window. We were grown, we grew up with knowing how to conduct ourselves, how to carry ourselves, and how to be an example of the best that we could be when we were outside in public. Daryl's
Mm.
rules do not apply anymore. So to Daryl's point, I kind of get what he's saying.
Yeah,
You have a responsibility too.
yeah, and it's interesting because I was talking to a lawyer about that as well. Shouts out to William H. Harding because he was instrumental years ago, talking to young people, and we had a symposium somewhat about this. But he was saying like a lot of times being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He tries to tell young brothers and sisters about that. Not to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, because then when that happens, then you put yourself in a position in which now you've got a police officer that see you in the wrong place, and it was great. And I appreciate him even sharing that with me about that. And it ties into what you said, sis, as far as how we conduct ourselves. If we want better, we need to act better.
That's right.
But at the same time, though, while we're acting better, we need them to be better too.
Absolutely.
So, again, it's that coming to the middle. I can go, like you said, I've gone to the Wilkerson Walmart and such, and yeah, it gets kind of boisterous and it gets kind of crazy there. And they, but there's still people. And that's the thing I'm really trying to get everybody to understand, because so many times you hear in media, they downplay what's going on with, the individual and why they got shot and stuff, because they were a drug dealer, they were this and that. Let me tell you, we're all human beings and we
That's right.
deserve the right to live and live fruitfully while we're here on this plane of existence. And we
That's
should not be
right.
taken out because we look like a thug, or we have locks, or we smell like weed, or we ran from the police, or whatever sort. It should not matter who you are, that you lose your life in the process.
Wouldn't it be a great day if the media would report something like this? A human being was apprehended in a Walmart or whatever. It immediately takes the prejudice out of it. It focuses on the meat and potatoes of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you start using adjectives to describe someone that you got in secondhand because you don't know that person, and you're putting it out here because it's the news, it must be true. Um, it's social media, it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
You've already tainted any chance of that person of having a rebuttal or to say, hey, this is actually what happened. And when it comes down to someone saying, you know, oh, they were this, they were that, in the media, it burns me. It pissed me off. Why and how can you go and dig up something that happened to somebody 5, 6, 7 years ago? Where are the resources coming from that? But you never, ever, ever get the same thing for the other party. You
Mm.
can't even get if they've had any other complaints that, speaking about an officer, you can't even get if they had any other complaints in the last 5 years. None of that's ever been divulged. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that is just to the point of where it just takes me there. Because if all somebody wants to do is bring up the bad, you're gonna look bad.
True.
And
Hmm.
some of that stuff and happened 8, 9, 10 years ago, and they bring it up like it just happened yesterday for that victim.
Yeah, like we always say, the media plays its part in all that as
They
well.
do.
So,
They
They
do.
do.
They also have a
They do.
responsibility that they have lost their sight
hmm
in their way. I've
hmm
never thought that I would get to a point where the media would not care about
Yeah.
the quality of news and facts or lack of facts. I never thought that I would see that day.
Well, here's the irony too, is the fact of how someone who loses their life and they'll dig up dirt, and then you'll have people, and I noticed this as well on social media last week when the Chauvin trial was about to come to an end and the verdict being announced. And you had so many social media trolls that were making negative comments about the brother who could not defend himself. And I posed this question to somebody, and I said this to them as well, is the fact that this young lady, his daughter, will never have a father-daughter dance. She will never have a walk down the aisle by her daddy. She will never see him sitting out in the crowd watching her as she accepts her degree in whatever facet that she wants to study for. She will never have those moments because of what just happened. And for people to get on there and talk so negatively about him and his drugs, about what he did, about the quote unquote fake $20 bill, whatever the case may be. Again, we're talking about a human life, right?
Human.
A human life that is now gone, that has forever changed not just how the world is perceiving police and individual interactions, but it has now changed her dynamic. So I pose this question, and I'm going to leave this with everybody, is the fact of this. Because of this happening, she made that comment that her daddy is going to change the world. How do you think she now feels, his daughter, and what will she teach her children's children going forward after losing her father in such a horrific way? And none of the media trolls will come out there and say anything about this. None of them will jump out there and even make a comment about that, because again, we lose the humanity. A man lost his life, knee in the neck and in his back, and laid in his own excrement, calling to his mother, who had already passed on to glory. And it's ironic because my boy Tonex, he talked to someone not too long ago who actually knew and went to school with George Floyd. And George Floyd even told him then that the police is going to be the death of me. That is scary.
It's scary because it appears that they come from a prophetic family, a prophetic line.
Mm-hmm.
And so we as a nation have to be the influence on his daughter as of tomorrow, as immediate as tomorrow. And if you feel that there's nothing that you can do, there is always something you can do. And if you don't know what to do, just start on yourself. Make yourself a better citizen. I didn't say black. I didn't say white. I didn't say woman. I didn't say man. Be a better citizen. Be a better human. I shared a story with my brothers before we got on the air about me just doing soul searching. And for those who don't believe in God, sorry, but I do. I'm thinking and praying on certain things and changes that's coming about in my life, and asking God for some guidance. And honestly, kind of asking Him, but in your heart, He knows your heart. And God spoke to me and said that I knew your soul and purpose before you were even conceived, before conception. You understand what that means? That means that
Mm-hmm.
He gave me a purpose and a soul before He determined that I was going to be black or white or Asian, a man or a woman, boy or girl. He gave me those two things. And so, if nothing else, I have to make sure that I am maintaining my soul and staying true to the purpose. And if we as citizens can do that, we'll be so busy trying to make sure that we doing what we supposed to do. Number one, you're not going to have time to look at nobody else. And number two, you're not going to have time to judge anybody else, because you will see them for their soul and you will see them for their purpose. And everything else is just everything else.
Mm-hmm. Hey, money. Told you, boy.
Well said.
Man, that was deep. So, family, everybody, we want to thank y'all for joining us tonight on the show. Any closing remarks, bro, sis?
Hey, money got it.
Everybody, everybody is a son or daughter to someone. Some may be fathers and mothers, aunts and uncles. As Aunt said, mutual respect. Treat everybody with that mutual respect. And that'll be the genesis to what we need to start doing to solve a lot of these problems.
That's right.
Amen. Wow.
Agreed.
Agree. Well, family, another one is in the books. If y'all get a chance, if you don't mind, share this little tidbit of info and dialect that we've thrown forth this evening. You know, share with your mama, your grandmama, aunt, uncle, and them. See what they think. We'd love to hear from you. Definitely want you to respond to it. Nobody was bold enough to jump on. We would have sent you the link to be on, but next week's shows could be good as well. So if you get a chance and you want to join us, let us know. We'll give you the link. You log in, you come here. You'll be right here on the box, and we'll chat some more. Oh, Charlie Two's closed us out and said, love and treat others' lives like you want to make it too. Queen. She always do it.
Does.
She always do it. But yeah, family, we got to get ready to log off and such. If you get a chance again, share this, be an inspiration to other people, and tune in next week. We're not going to tell you what the show is going to be about yet. We're going to surprise you next week. It's going to be fun-filled and enjoyable. And we'll see you then. Peace, love, and hair grease.